Welcome to this MTZ weekly astrology forecast for July 25th through the 31st of 2016. So this week we have Mercury trining Uranus, Mercury squaring Mars, and Uranus going retrograde. This is a week of mixing things up, developing our temperament, and revolutionizing our lives. In this video, I'm going to show you how to work with and master these astrological transits coming up next. Let's look at the first event this week, Mercury trine Uranus on Tuesday and Wednesday. This is a mentally stimulating transit where our minds can be more alert and excited than usual. Uranus, the planet of revolutionary change and progressiveness, can make us more interested in new ideas and new ways of thinking about things. In fact, there can often be great insights that come to us during this time because of this unorthodox way of looking at things. We will likely seek a break from our everyday routine and look for ways to bring some excitement into our daily lives. Mercury, who is also the planet of communication, can make for some stimulating conversations, and perhaps wanting to seek out those who have a unique and different way of looking at things. This is an excellent first half of the week to learn about new subjects that interest you, take existing projects that you may have been stuck on in the past and think about them in new ways, as well as to change up the routine and to be open to new experiences and new interactions. To illustrate this unique way of seeing things, consider the story about a factory owner who had a problem with his production line. The problem he was facing was that sometimes empty boxes would end up at the end of the line and shipped to customers without any product inside. This was a serious problem, so the owner hired a team of experts and engineers to find a solution. They designed a device where each box was weighed on the assembly line, and if the box weighed less than it should, a bell would ring for someone to come and remove the empty box. 6 months and $200,000 later, the weighing mechanism was installed, and all was going smoothly without a single customer complaint about empty shipments. A week later, the owner looked at the production line statistics and noticed that the scales hadn't picked up any empty boxes for an entire week. Concerned something was wrong with the newly installed scale, he went to check it out. What he noticed next to the scale was a cheap plastic fan blowing onto the boxes as they passed over the conveyor belt. "What is this?" he asked one of the passing factory workers. "Oh, that," said the worker. "One of the guys put the fan there to blow the empty boxes off the line so we don't have to go over there every time the bell rings." Sometimes it just takes a bit of ingenuity and creative thinking to bring in the change we'd like to see. This is a great week for innovation and trying new things for both our productive and personal lives. Here are the areas of life this aspect can be utilized for you. You can look at this for your sun, moon, and ascendant sign for the most detailed picture. Remember, this is for Sidereal Astrology, so if you are new to the channel, check below for your true sidereal sign. Consider how you can change things up in this area to think about things differently and bring in some exciting change that can be stimulating and refreshing. Now let's look at this square between Mercury and Mars. This aspect will be exact on Friday and is a collectively challenging one. During this time, we can sometimes be touchy, hot-tempered, or irritable. This could come through our interactions with others since Mercury is often associated with interactions and communications. Generally, however, the short fuse could be with our activities throughout the day. Essentially, we can identify too strongly with what we think, say, or do. We can feel as though others or our environment are getting in the way of who we are and what we want. The key with this transit is to become conscious of our ego and what we might be holding on to tightly in regards to what we believe or think. There can be an instinctual response brought out in our daily interactions and activities. So being willing to let things go and pause for a moment can be a helpful way of working with this transit. Consider these simple words from a professor who one day was holding a glass of water in his hand and asked his class how heavy they thought the glass of water was. The student's answers ranged from 10 to 20 ounces, and then he asked for a student to come hold the glass of water. A student approached, held the glass out, and after a few minutes into the lecture asked the professor, "Sir, I'm tired. Is it alright if I set this glass down on the table now?" The professor nodded and said to the class, "Imagine if you had to hold this glass of water for a full hour, or even a full day. Would you think that 10 to 20 ounces weighed only a little?" "No," the students answered. "Well, this glass," the professor said, "represents all the small things we hold on to every day. Hold on to a thought or a belief for a few minutes, and nothing happens. Hold on to it for longer, and it begins to weigh heavy. Remember to set the glass down throughout the day. Be willing to set your thoughts and beliefs aside as often as you can." Here's a list of areas Mercury is transiting where you can challenge yourself to work on setting things down for a moment. Whether it's one thing or a series of things, by accepting them for the way that they are and putting them aside, we release the burdens and frustrations of the day. As a result, we can be free to get things done with a cool-headed, confident, and relaxed frame of mind. The last major event this week, Uranus retrograde, will also be on Friday. This is the now reflection of what changes we can make in our life so that we can have more freedom. With Uranus in Pisces, this is particularly freedom of having more peace and tranquility. With Uranus paused in the sky the second half of the week, it's a great time to consider where we can introduce more freedom in our everyday experiences, to see what changes we can make so that we can have more calm and spiritual fulfillment. With Uranus, sometimes we must be willing to make revolutionary changes, particularly with our way of seeing things. Like the transit earlier in the week where we can have an unorthodox way of seeing things, use this innovative thinking that Uranus brings to see what changes you can make with your view of life, so that you can have more calm and tranquility. This change is not always easy with these transformative outer planets. Sometimes this change comes at a cost. If you consider when Uranus was first discovered in the sky in 1781, this was a major time of revolution across the globe. The US was in the middle of its revolt against the tyrannical British government, which was soon followed by the French Revolution in 1789, then the Spanish-American Independence Wars in the early 1800s. These major global turning points from the traditional top-down, centralized forms of government to the minimal styles of governance based on freedom, equality, and individuality are the hallmarks of what Uranus represents in our lives. Although the cost of freedom can be high, the result is well worth it when executed correctly. Here's a list of areas Uranus is going retrograde for you this week. Consider how you can change this area so you have more freedom. Will this change bring in more peace and tranquility? What are some old belief systems you can change? How can you use new and inventive ways to bring in this freedom? So this week we have Mercury trine Uranus, helping us think outside the box and bring in some stimulating new activities into the daily routine. Mercury square Mars, giving us an opportunity to practice acceptance and temperance. Taking the time to set things aside and let things go can be a great way of working with this. With Uranus retrograde, reflecting on where we can make a change so that we can have more serenity and stillness in our lives. Sometimes revolutionary change is needed, and reflecting on where we can make this change is the hallmark of this retrograde. So have an excellent week. Be sure to share this video with your friends and family on social media. If you would like to support this channel so that I can continue to make more videos like this one, the best way is by getting a live or recorded reading you can find using the link below. So thank you so much for all of your support. Have a great one, and I'll see you next week.